You're having coffee at 5:30 at night in the evening.
Oh, I love coffee. This is the best stuff.
Do you feel like you need coffee or do you feel like you just enjoy it?
I
Or
love
both?
coffee. I love the ambiance of it. I love the smell of it. I love everything about it.
Yeah. And
So,
also it gives you it keeps like wakes you up,
not
stimulates
really.
you. Really?
In the morning, when I have my first morning cup of coffee, what I
Uh-huh.
notice is I go to the bathroom.
Uh-huh.
so,
Okay. So you
so
don't go without that.
I do it every morning, so I don't know if I do or don't.
Okay, interesting.
Because I haven't missed a cup of coffee in what, 50 years?
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I actually I gave it up this year, not for any other reason except for that I just don't do well with it. It really stimulates me beyond what I need to be stimulated.
Fair
So,
enough. Everyone is unique and different. You
mhm.
see the hat?
What does it say? 223? Oh,
222.
222. Oh my goodness. Okay, I cannot wait.
22, baby.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm like afraid to start actually because I'm not afraid, but it's like there's so much, so much. Like the last time we talked, you kind of warned us about everything that's sort of unfolding. And
Yep. The first time we talked, I told you everything about 22.
right.
Everything. So I want to just briefly go into that.
Okay, let's do
I
it.
don't, I don't want to get over. Are we beginning now
Yep.
or?
Yeah, we're on. We're on. I do the intro later. Yep.
Oh, wait, I just
Whenever I'm ready when you are.
okay, hold on. All right, so we went into this Pluto conjunction
Right.
on,
Pluto is over the United States now, right?
right.
Okay.
So Pluto has a 248-year cycle. And so 248 years ago, that was the American Revolution.
1776.
You better believe it. And so we have this Plutonian energy in Saturn. Saturn is governmental agencies, order, structure, banking. It's all the three-letter alphabet agencies for order and structure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very rigid. It's very, it's father time. It's Saturn. It's that Saturnalian energy. Saturn is Satan. So there's the who's controlling epochs of time. It's Saturn. And so now we have this Plutonian energy entering Saturn, and it's going to bring down the fortress. It's going to break the walls of order and structure of everything governmental. So that Plutonian energy is going to really, it's going to be a game changer because the matrix will be coming down. So Pluto is death. It's Hades. It's the underworld. And we went into this cycle on 2/22/2022 on a Tuesday. What's significant about a Tuesday?
Mm.
We vote on Tuesdays, declarations of war on Tuesdays, presidential speeches on Tuesday, 9/11 on Tuesday, because Tuesday is the day of Mars, the day of war. So on the day of war, that's when Putin signed the papers for what we see going on at this very moment with the Russian-Ukrainian thing, but that was signed on the day of war on 2/22. And so 22 is that Powerball number of creation and destruction. Of course, we all have 22 chromosomes. We know you have a 23rd chromosome, but the 22 we all share. The 23rd is either an XX or an XY, determining are you a Mars or a Venus, a man or a woman. But we all share the 22. Remember, that 22, we have 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. The book of Revelation, 22 chapters. We have 22 branches of Homeland Security. Then we have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, add that up. That's 22. So it's a catch-22 because Hollywood is trying to reveal this. So they tell us about this through, the revelation of the method, which is, they have to tell you. So they put it in plain, put it in your face. And so let's look at some significant things that happen with this 22. The pop princess Ariana Grande?
Yeah.
Okay, so she had that Manchester concert in 2017.
I remember.
The suicide bomber, 22 dead on May 22nd, of which her playlist was 22 songs. Her last song was in the charts for 22 weeks. That was the time the bomb went off on the hour of 22:30. And no coincidence that the suicide bomber's age was 22 years of age. And then we have Jay-Z rapping 22 TWO 22 times in the first verse. And then we have
Really?
tons of movies. We have in National Treasure, Nick Cage looks at his watch, it's 222. In A Few Good Men, Tom Cruise has 22 witnesses. In Swordfish, 22 hostages. Mile or Jump Street 22, Mile 22, Room 222. So 22 is this power building number of creation and destruction. So with this Plutonian force, it becomes very important that we let go of everything that needs to die, because when things die, then we can be reborn. And that's the phoenix rising. But we have to let this old matrix die, because this is what the Plutonian energy is trying to reveal to us, that this matrix that we're in, this false matrix, is death and destruction, and it has to come down. So this is why we knew we would be here. So when we entered, this whole hoax began on 3/20 of 2020. That's when we had our talk. And that was 3/20. So 3/20 was the spring equinox that set the table for this whole 2020 event. Now we're in phase 2. This is when the virus thing will be faded out. Now we're getting into the real reset. And this is where you're going to see the financial wars, the physical wars, and a complete breakdown of everything. So what's important is we're ready for radical changes, because it's coming.
Right. Okay. So first of all, why do they have to tell us? I hear that a lot. They have to reveal to us their strategy, not their strategy, but what their plan is or whatever. What does that even mean?
So they're not going against free will. They're giving you a choice. And so you have the knowledge, and now how you play the cards, it's up to you. So they put the information like in The Simpsons or in a movie or in a, Ariana Grande's whole stage event. So they're always putting it there, but they think we're too stupid to figure it out, because most of us are sleeping. And so the awakening is having that third eye vision to see the numbers, to see the messages, to see the symbolism, so that we can awaken to understand what the hell is really going on. Because this is an ancient cycle coming to fruition, and it will get interesting. Did I answer your question?
Yes, it's already interesting. Yes, you did. Okay, so so now that you said that, so they have to tell us. So that leads into my next question. So does Putin know that his speech was on that significant day?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so when we say they, so people who have just never heard my podcast and never heard us, and we keep referring to they have to tell us, and that they did this concert and they did this in the Hollywood movies. Who is they?
They is the hidden hand. These are the architects of control. These are the master builders, the brotherhoods, and they have many, many departments. You can call them the Jesuits, the Illuminati, the Masonic Brotherhood, the Sisterhoods. It's all these clubs, the Club of Rome, all of them. They're all part of this hidden hand. But who's controlling the hidden hand is a small elite group of a bloodline. And that's where we get into the fallen angels and that whole Luciferian Satanistic control of who really is controlling the planet, because the ones running the show, they're built on death and destruction, and they have the fake light, they don't have the real light. And so that's why they call themselves the Illuminati, because they're trying to illuminate themselves, but they're in the false light, and they're trying to control the epochs of time. That's why they use Saturn. Saturn is the rings of time.
Mhm.
Father Time will get us all in the end. So when we understand, how do we become the magician? They're the black magicians, the sorcerers. We have to become the white magician, and we have to master the elements so we can exalt our health to a much better place, so we can thrive and survive in this epoch. Because with this Plutonian force, doesn't matter what they do. If we have health, we create invincible health, we'll get through anything. We'll get through financial crashes, World War IIIs, we'll get through, there's going to be a blackout, I'm sure. There's going to be food shortage. We'll get through everything if we have health. But that health actually started in 2012. 2012, with that whole Mayan count, we were warned back then. And so that Mayan count brought us to 2019. And when it really started, because everything happens in 7-year cycles. So the 7-year cycles become some of the most fascinating things, because when we look at these 7-year cycle, why the number 7? What's God's favorite number?
7.
7 days of creation. Those 7 days of creation are the 7 physical orbs to the naked eye. So that's the magnificent 7. They're incorruptible. We can play with calendars. We can add leap years, and we can go from lunar calendars to Gregorian calendars. We can, have, we change the hour, we change the clock. We could screw up the calendar every which way. But one thing that hasn't changed are the 7 days of the week. And so those 7 correspond to the 7 chakras. When those chakras spin, then the 7 endocrine glands will flow. And that's also the 7 cervical vertebra, the 7 layers of skin, the 7 days in the week, the 7 colors in the rainbow, the 7 verses in the Lord's Prayer, the 7 C's, the 7 sins, the 7 virtues. You go to Vegas, you're rolling dice for magic 7, because 7 is creation. And so 7 is God's favorite number. So when we understand the power of 7 in those 7 orbs, how they correspond to us, how we have to learn how to master these elements, because within every planet, there's a correspondence of a metal and, multiple metals that we have to get into balance. And so when we go through the 7-year cycles, the first cycle is 0 to 7. So 0 to 7 is the first cycle we go, and that's a moon cycle. The moon is the water. And so the moon represents the pineal gland. It represents the nocturnal cycle. The moon represents the breast, the stomach, the menstrual cycle, food, mothering, nurturing. What's the baby do the first year of life? It sleeps. It feeds off of the breast milk. It's in the nocturnal, the unconscious, which is the moon. And so that moon energy, when that moon energy goes offline, then we become the lunatic, or the monstar. The moon star becomes the monster when it is polluted and diverted. So our goal is to always balance out these elements. So then we look at the moon. What are the metals of the moon? Sodium, because we know the moon controls the tides, the high tides, the low tides. And so the moon is a 28-day cycle. The menstrual period is a 28, 29-day cycle, corresponding to the water element, to the blood. And so we see these mothering moon energies, and we see the first cycle of life is 0 to 7. So knowing someone was born in a Cancer, or someone was born on a Monday, or someone is in a 0 to 7 cycle, then we can come in with homeopathic remedies to help when the baby starts teething, or the baby is screaming, or has eczema during that first 0 to 7. We look for moon herbs. Maybe we need a moon Saturn herb, maybe we need a moon Jupiter herb, or whatever. But understanding that fundamental 0 to 7 is the moon. Then when we hit age 7, what planet comes online? Mercury. That's Curious George. That's intelligence, communication, where we learn to write and to communicate, and speech. And then Mercury has to do with, the right brain, the left brain, the autonomic nervous system, parasympathetic and sympathetic. It has to do with the right lung, the left lung. So it's the pairs, it's the twins. And so when the child goes into that 7-year Mercury cycle between 7 and 14, that's when they're engaging in communication. They're learning how to write and communicate. And they're still not quite sexual. So they're more on the hermaphrodite. They haven't really figured out the sexes yet because Venus hasn't come online just yet. And then when we hit age 14 to 21, that's when all the hormones start to come online, and that's the copper line, that because copper and estrogen intimately related. So when we hit age 14 to 21, that's when sex and hormones and themes of your first love, your first sexual encounter, we start to understand about beauty and all the themes of the Venetian energy. And so we're in that cycle during 14 to 21. And so that has everything to do with copper. And so then you look at when someone's going through a moon cycle, or I'm sorry, a Venus cycle, and they're struggling with, let's say it's a young girl and she's struggling with her periods, then we have homeopathic Venus remedies such as pulsatilla, the tears of Venus, or we have sepia, which the sepia fish breathes using copper, and it's great for menstrual irregularities, hormonal disturbances, uterine cramping. So we start to use these remedies when anyone's in a certain cycle. So 21 or 14 to 21 is, of course, the Venetian cycle. And then we go through 3 sun cycles. So sun cycles are going to be 7, 7, 7. That's going to be a 21-year cycle because we have a sunrise, a midday sun, and a sunset. So everything revolves around the sun. So the sun is our heart. So in that 21-year cycle, that's when we fall in love. That's when we find our passion about our careers. That's when we become very we feel the heart energy, and we put all our focus and energy to building careers, relationships, sportsmanship, and we're listening to this heart energy. And that's why that's a 21-year cycle to develop our, maybe we have to go through a master's program, a doctoral program, or we're working on this or working on that.
Yeah.
And fall in love when we get married in those 21-year in that 21-year cycle. Most Nobel laureates win the Nobel Prize during that sun cycle. That's passion and commitment to your craft. And so we see that when someone has a heart, and the sun rules the heart and circulation, where Venus rules the veins, Mars rules the arteries. So arteries, veins, but circulation is the heart. So we start to get a feel when someone was born maybe on a Sunday, which is the sun, or they were born in Leo. So we have to pay attention if they're born in Leo or they have a lot of sun in their chart. Then we have the herbs, the homeopathics, to help energize that part of the body, whether it's the heart or circulation or our passion. And so when someone gets stuck in a heart center, we have tons of remedies to help move the case so they can break the walls that are preventing them from living out their dreams or following their passion or being caught in a wrong relationship. So then we go through those 3 7-year sun cycles. Then when we hit age 42 to 49, we go into a Mars cycle. So Mars rules the immune system. So Mars is always fighting for your immune system. It also rules the muscles. That's that martial energy, that competitive energy. It rules the gallbladder. And so we see most women get gallstones between 42 and 49 because Mars is that martial energy. So that Mars can be aggression. When we haven't dealt with our aggression, then that aggression becomes calcified, and that calcified aggression becomes the gallstones. So we start to see the bilious temperament, the gall of life, but that Mars energy needs to be expressed. You don't want to pervert it where you're angry and you're belligerent and you're always fighting. Or what's the opposite pole of that is where we become anemic, where we don't have the energy, we don't have the iron to fight the good fight. So those born on a Tuesday have a Mars constitution. Those born in Aries have a Mars constitution. Those born in Scorpio have a Mars constitution. So we have tons of remedies to fuel that Mars energy. Of course, the metal of Mars is iron, zinc, because zinc is always fighting for your immune system. Iron is where we build up the blood so we don't become anemic. And so we need that energy to fuel the muscles so we can fight the good fight, stand up for ourselves so we don't become the doormat. So that's 42 to 49. That's the Mars cycle. Then we go into a Jupiter cycle beginning at age 49 to 56. So that's the largest planet, Jupiter. So what organ do you think Jupiter rules?
The liver.
The liver, the largest organ, the largest internal organ, the largest planet, and that planet is a very gaseous planet. That's when we get gas and bloating. That's when we get liver issues, and liver issues can be hormones gone crazy. It could be liver fire rising, causing the clenching of the jaw, the grinding of the teeth, the neck pains, the floaters in the eyes, the headaches, all hormonal bilious stuff. And so that's the liver, and that's the largest planet. So when we're not, Jupiter is growth and expansion. When we're not growing and expanding consciously, then we grow and expand around the waistline, and that's when most people put on weight. So then we have homeopathic remedies, the lycopodiums, the chelidoniums, the arsenicums. We got milk thistle herbs for the liver. So we help to fortify that liver energy when it becomes either perverted or repressed, because we always want balance. And then we get into my cycle. I'm in a Saturn cycle. So Saturn is from age 56 to 63. So I'm at age 59. So I've been in my Saturn cycle. The first month in my Saturn cycle, so Saturn rules the bones, the teeth, the spleen, and the skin. And it represents father time. Of course, the metal of Saturn is calcium and lead, but there's others, but calcium and lead are the most predominant elements of the correspondence of Saturn. So when I entered into my Saturn cycle, I think it was either the second or third month into my Saturn cycle, when I just turned 56, I had an old filling that fell out. Okay. Then about a year, or about 8 months ago, I broke this digit right here. So I had a trauma and I broke this finger. And of course, while in the hospital, they wanted to, give me a vaccine. They wanted to give me a tetanus shot. They wanted to give me an antibiotic. So I told Nurse Ratchet, I don't want any of that stuff. Just take the x-ray, stitch up the wound, let me go. And so they did that, and the bone is just starting to heal. So when I'm in my Saturn cycle, I'm paying attention to my teeth, to my bones, to my spleen, and energetically, it's father time. It's where we start to look our age, where aging comes on. So I'm reflecting on the themes of Saturn. I'm learning how to be by myself. I'm learning, to understand this cycle, because when I'm in this cycle, I'm going to strengthen my bones. I'm going to do a lot of oil pulling from my teeth. So I'm prepared for this cycle, so the Grim Reaper doesn't come to take. In this cycle, calcium metabolism will have everything to do with Saturn cycle, because when that calcium goes high, that's the calcium shell. That's the great calcification that will kill you. Or you go into a 4 low, that's the tunnel of death. And that's father time, the Grim Reaper coming to take. And then once we finish those cycles, then we go back to a moon cycle, back to a Venus cycle. And that's the 7-year cycles.
Right. So so once you go back through the cycle again and you're already aged, you're still going to have experiences of those new cycles, but you're not going to have obviously the youth. But if you work on your mineral balance and you work on being aware of these things, and you get to where you're 70 and up, you can still have that youth. You can still have, not youth, I guess is not the word, but you don't have to go down in a rickety ball of flames, like with the whole hunchback and the way we envision aging. When you say calcium shell, I automatically, like, this just happened recently where I had a pretty severe accident many years ago, and I have really bad neck from it, and I didn't have any issues at all from that until, what's the age you said with the neck, and for that period of time to 56, before 56, when does it start?
So the Saturn years is 56 to 63, and that's bones.
And before that
is Jupiter. And Jupiter is that liver fire rising. So
but that age range is
49 to 56.
Okay. So I'm 52 now.
So
And
you're in a Jupiter cycle.
all of a sudden, this injury that I had from a million years ago is like all of a sudden I have this neck problem and I just can't function. It's like now it's a constant care, you know? But what I realized is that I noticed that my body was really changing when I turned, you know, like 49, 50, 50, 51. And so I started really working out and I started doing, you know, I had seen you not that long before that. And I started really working on my minerals and my sodium, which was a huge problem. And, you know, started working out again and just finding that I was managing that Jupiter energy that was coming for me. I was able to manage that and now I feel like I'm thriving again, you know? So what my question is, you know, why did we get so pulled? Okay, this type of work, this alchemy, this astrology, this homeopathy has been so demonized in every way, not even in a spiritual aspect, but even from, you know, the pharma and what they've done to homeopathy, what the whole medical model has done to these remedies. And then even religiously, what they have done. This, I feel like this stuff is so incredibly important and has been deleted out of antiquity and deleted out of our ancient texts, and we just are not able to. This is something we should all be studying. Do you think that that is part of the plan, that they took it out of our curriculum, out of our ability to study these things? Everyone should know this. Why don't they?
You know, that's a great question because they want to control the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry. They want to control all industries. And so to do that, they have to dumb us down. They need us kind of, you know, smart enough to push the buttons, but dumb enough to ask any real pertinent questions. So they've been drip feeding poisons into us for the last 100 years. Those poisons into us prevent us from really opening up that third eye, that sacred eye, the eye of Christ, the eye of Buddha, and that's the pineal gland. So everything, the prize is that pineal gland, and they're trying to own that. If they own that, then they control our dreams and visions. When we become the magician, the white magician, we control our own dreams, our own vision, and we control our faith in our own hands to go on the path we were meant to go on. But without health, without the balance of the chakras, without the minerals, without, you know, understanding the great calcification of the cycles we're in, they're manipulating that. So they are controlling time. They've been controlling time since almost the beginning of time, and that's why they can get away with murder and do whatever and rig elections and, you know, create fake viruses. And of course, the virus is an air element because it's transmitted through the air. So as we entered into the Aquarian age, you know, they're going to own communication and telecommunications and satellites and, you know, everything that goes through the air, including viruses. So that's one of their tools that they're using because we're in that Aquarian age. Mm-hmm. And so they don't want you to know this esoteric knowledge. So they're giving you the exoteric and we're not learning the esoteric. In reality, you need both. You need, you know, you have to have one foot in both worlds. So the esoteric path is a very lonely path. It doesn't promise the roses and the fame and the glory. It's a very individualized path, but you're following your true path. And they want to control your dreams, your vision. They don't want you to have your own inner vision, so you have an inner understanding, so you can, you know, overstand to understand. And so they're controlling everything. And that's why we become the magician by mastering the elements.
Mm. Yeah, because it seems so futile right now. You know, when you look at at what's happening this week in Russia and Ukraine and and you know the trucker convoy in Canada and how it's pretty much failed to some degree. Like, you know, it feels futile. And so, you know, I always resort to, or I always fall back on, okay, God has a plan. I'm going to be okay. My immediate surroundings in life is fine. I have control of my own health. And that I think is the what you're talking about. It's like having, but okay, I'm going to go back to what I was saying though about the alchemy and the esoteric knowledge, the divinity of that, the like when you look at how incredibly special that is, that we have 7 layers of skin and that we have 7 chakras and that we have 7 cervical vertebrae, these things like they're not a coincidence. There's something very beautiful and divine about the design of the human body and all and the world, the planet, because of the actual, the periodic table. I mean, it's all so magical and beautiful. And it seems like we have been taken away from trying to understand it and trying to dig deeper than just taking a chemistry class or becoming a biochemist, but seeing the magic within that, seeing that divine, godly hand behind it. And so this brings me back to the old thing that I always go crazy about, which is I feel like that's been taken away from women too, because I feel like women have always had this really special quality to nurture, the Venus qualities of nurturing and healing. I mean, I don't even think any women heal in the Bible. Like what? Like that is what we do. Like we heal. And so it makes me crazy that this stuff that you practice, even though you're a man, I feel like it really lends itself to a very feminine quality that we all have, and that it's been stolen from us to some degree, and that we don't have like the burning of the witches because they're healing you with herbs and are healing you with remedies and things. That I feel like they did a really good job of hijacking the esoteric aspect and the alchemy aspect, the homeopathic aspect. They've hijacked it, taken it away from us, and make it look like it's witchcraft or it's crazy or you're a quack or whatever. And you said it best. It ends up you alone doing this. You have to pursue this on your own.
Right. It's the road less traveled, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
They're controlling the educational system. We go through grades 1 through 12. The son has to go through the 12 houses. So the real school is the 12 houses above, but they give you a simulacra of it, controlling you, putting you in this prison planet of an educational system where they're not opening up the creativity of our minds. Where they teach us some fundamental things like writing and reading and mathematics, which is good stuff. But what about the creative aspects of life? What about opening up the 2 hemispheres? So when the 2 hemispheres come into balance, then we're operating holographically, whole. That whole is where we get the holy, the wholesome, and we truly develop, because it's about that developmental program. So when we look at the sun, it goes through the 12 houses. And so what mineral represents the sun? What's the quintessence of the sun? What mineral?
Not iron.
That's Mars.
Gosh, I should know
Think
this.
photosynthesis.
It's not magnesium.
It's magnesium.
What? Did I know that? That's amazing.
Magnesium is the magical, majestic, magnanimous life bringer, because it's the Magdalene, magnetic, feminine energy of the sun that bursts life to this planet. Only the feminine can create life. And so the plant's chlorophyll is green because of the mineral magnesium. So magnesium is number 12 on the periodic table of elements, because magnesium's got to go through the 12 houses, and it's the building block for the entire planet, because magnesium sets the table for the entire food chain for the planet. And then when we think of magnesium, every molecule of ATP, that adenosine triphosphate, which is the juice that runs every cell in your body, that ATP must have a magnesium ion bound to it, or the ATP doesn't work, because magnesium sparks. That's why they put it in fireworks. So magnesium is such a beautiful element. It's one of the most abundant elements, yet we're so deficient in it because we have enemies of magnesium. And so they know that. So they're controlling that magnetic energy of the sun by blocking out the, by destroying the magnesium in us, and destroying the whole feminine archetypal energy, because they don't want that feminine energy to rise, because the feminine energy is two X's. It's got an extra leg. So that's why the feminine energy is smarter, wiser, and can give life. And so we created this patriarchal dominance, and that's a lot of this iron energy that Mars kind of always at war, always battling, always fighting. So we just left the Iron Age and we are just shifting into the Bronze Age. And that's why that feminine energy will come back to life. It may take another 100 years, 200 years before it starts to balance itself, but it will. And so the control of the magnesium by, when we look at the enemies of magnesium, so that ATP, when you have that ATP, that's why it sparks. So the magnesium will break the triphosphate bond to release the phosphate to create the energy. And that's what magnesium does. It's the spark that breaks the bond. And that's why every molecule of ATP must have that magnesium bound to it. When that magnesium can't bind to the ATP, you're dead.
Wow.
So that's how important this mineral is. Then we look at who are the enemies of magnesium. NPK soil. So we've been farming with NPK soil for the last 100 years, which chelates out, which actually they don't put magnesium in the soil. Then you throw in the glyphosate and the herbicides, the fungicide, the insecticides, which all chelate magnesium out. Then you throw in the fluoride. Fluoride is one of the worst offenders of magnesium. It will block it and chelate it out. And then the metals, cadmium will block magnesium, aluminum will block magnesium, and lead. Lead represents Saturn. Saturn is the furthest from the sun. So Saturn shields light. That's when you go to the dentist, they put the lead aprons on you because it shields light. It's blocking the X-ray from going into you. So Saturn shields light. Lead shields light. What metal has killed more than any other metal on planet Earth? Lead. Lead bullets, lead paint, lead chips, lead plumbing. And that's what brought down the Roman Empire, running the water through lead Saturnalian pipes. That was the death and deadening of that culture. That was why the Roman Empire crashed, because the people were in burnout. Right now, the American people are in burnout because we're running our water through copper pipes. So now we have this copper toxicity, and that's the most dysregulated metal in the periodic table in human physiology. The number one antagonist to magnesium is copper. Cadmium blocks it, mercury blocks it, aluminum blocks it, because copper is in the final step in the electron transport chain. So in cytochrome 4, the final donator of electrons to oxygen is copper. So that copper, once it donates its electrons to oxygen in that final step, then the ATP, then the magnesium can bind to the ATP to spark it. But that copper can bully its way in because it's so electrical, and it's in a +2, and magnesium is in a +2. So it can mimic the magnesium, bully its way out, stick to where the magnesium should be, and copper will block the ATP. And what's the first thing of a copper toxic person? Tired. I'm fatigued, because they can't get the mitochondria to produce the energy. And as a result, every disease under the sun. So that's why understanding that magnetic energy of the sun is very, very important, because it really is the quarterback in the mineral matrix. And so you need a good quarterback. And when you have a good quarterback, you're going to have a good winning team. You need a Tom Brady, you need a Joe Montana, a Fran Tarkenton, so that quarterback can guide the team. All the other players are important, but the quarterback is always pretty special. And so the quarterback is magnesium. That's why you have to understand who are the enemies of magnesium. NPK soils, fluoride, glyphosates, heavy metals, and the worst offender is copper. And that's that Venetian theme that the copper can either have two paths we can go on. And so, that song, Stairway to Heaven?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I lost it. Okay, so Stairway to Heaven. Well, first, Led Zeppelin. What is lead? Saturn. What's a Zeppelin?
A balloon.
Helium balloon.
Mm.
Helium is the sun.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's the age-old battle between Sun, Jesus, Saturn, Satan. So Led Zeppelin is Saturn, and it's Satan and Jesus. Okay, so you got that dialect going on.
Did
So
they know that?
I would bet they do. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I would guess they do. I'm pretty sure because they're pretty. You just don't make it in the Hollywood rock and roll stardom by not being a player. You take the Faustian bargain through your career, where you will do anything for Big Brother.
Right.
They will promise you everything. And the movie Rosemary's Baby exemplifies that. So remember that movie Rosemary's Baby?
Yeah, yeah.
That movie was filmed where in the Dakota? Where
Mhm.
was John Lennon shot? In the Dakota. What was Rosemary giving birth to?
Satan.
Satan. Who was controlling that whole thing? Big Pharma was giving her the drugs to control her. And what did the Brotherhood promise her husband, who was a starving actor at the time? If you play ball with us, you're going to become an A-list actor. He took the Faustian bargain. So that stairway to heaven is, there's two paths we can go on. So when you hear the words, there's a feeling I get when I look to the west and my spirit is crying for leaving. What's the only planet that spins west? So if you are on Earth, the sun rises in the east. If you're on Mars, the sun rises in the east. If you're on Jupiter, the sun rises in the east. The only planet where the sun rises in the west is Venus. So the two paths we can go on will be, do we venerate the Venetian energy or does it become venereal? The root is the same, but they're two different meanings. So those are the two paths we can go on. So that's why the choice is always ours. So whatever happens in this world, we have to follow our path. We're all a star. Every star has its own trajectory path. So be like a star and follow your path. Don't follow the false light. Don't follow the fallen ones, the Hollywood stars, the superstars in the sports world. We have to become the star and shine like the light we were meant to be.
So then, okay, I don't want to get I don't want to confuse anyone, but I have to ask this, and I might end up editing it out because it might be too complex, because some people don't know about this. But so where does ceruloplasmin fit into the right path with copper? So ceruloplasmin is an antioxidant, is that right?
It's an acute phase reactant. So it has a day job and a night job. Its day job is to move copper. So you got to load 7 copper ions into ceruloplasmin. The gene that does it is called the ATP-B7 gene that allows the copper to be loaded. But that does not happen unless the adrenals, the longevity hormone, DHEA, sends a signal to the liver, tells the gene ATP-B7 to either load the copper, move the copper to where it needs to go, or dump the copper. So that ATP, anytime I said ATP, what must be a player in that ATP gene?
Magnesium.
Magnesium. If you can have a perfect gene with no glitches in that gene, and it can still not run right if you have a magnesium deficiency, because you need magnesium, you need an energy source to load that copper into the ceruloplasm. Then when that ceruloplasm becomes fully locked and loaded, now that ceruloplasm can go to the cytochrome C to fuel the mitochondria. It can go to the lysyl oxidase enzyme. It can go to the tyranase enzyme. It can make SOD. It can do a gazillion things, but that ceruloplasm definitely has to deliver the 7 ions of copper. And there'll be some discrepancy. Some people will say 6 ions of copper. Some people will say 8 ions, but it's the ATP7B gene. So to me, it's 7.
Yeah.
So that copper, once it loads, that ceruloplasm, which is made up of about 1,045 amino acids. To put that into perspective, insulin is about 50 something amino acids. Growth hormones is about 350 amino acids, but ceruloplasm is 1,045 amino acids. So when that copper comes in, it has to fold perfectly. And when it folds perfectly, then it can deliver the copper to every, to the dopamine beta hydroxylase enzyme in the brain,
Wow.
to make your melanin, to cross-link your collagen, to give you strength and integrity, good skin. And that's why copper has to do with beauty and everything, because we're always worried about skin, hair, teeth, nails.
Yeah.
And that's that
That's
copper
so
Venetian energy.
That's so interesting because, people think copper toxic, but you can be getting enough copper in your diet, or you can be getting, adequate amounts of copper. But if you don't have enough amino acids and you don't have magnesium, and you're not making enough ceruloplasm, then you're not carrying your copper around, which is going, or dumping it, which is going to be also something that's going to toxify you and make you copper dysregulated, right?
Well, there's two components to that, because for that ceruloplasmin to be manufactured, you got to have a healthy liver. Most of us have a fatty liver. A fatty liver leads to a sclerosed liver, fibrosed liver, to liver cirrhosis, to liver death. So when that liver becomes fatty, you're not going to be able to do the 500 functions that the liver is supposed to do, one of them making ceruloplasmin. And then the adrenals, that longevity hormone, you need a message to tell the liver what to do. And that's why that DHEA is an integral part. That's why the adrenals are an important part in copper metabolism. So you got to pick up the adrenals, specifically that DHEA, so it can tell the liver what to do with the copper, how to regulate it. So you need a healthy liver, you need healthy adrenals, you need stomach acid so you can get all the 1045 amino acids. So you need stomach acid, and then you need that stomach acid to put the magnesium into the right valence so it can be absorbed, so you can have the magnesium for that ATP B7 gene to fire.
Wow. It's so complex. It really is. You can really, I mean, it's just amazing. So, okay, I want to back up a little bit and go to, you said, so, 320 ushered in this COVID. And then you mentioned COVID is going to go away. And then this financial and communication stuff is going to become our big monster. So I was under the impression that COVID is actually going to never end, and that it's going to have a resurgence of some other variant. In fact, Fauci himself and Bill Gates told us that we have another pandemic on the way. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a possibility. So as we go into phase two, everything's going to be turned up a notch. That communist takeover. And so they're going to kill us with fear from every angle. And so fear is how they can get away with murder. Put you in fear, put your adrenals into burnout because you're in fear. You're not going to think clearly. You're going to be, well, I'm going to catch this, I'm going to catch that. If you have an immune system, you won't catch anything. I haven't had a cold in 30 years. I haven't taken a baby aspirin in 30 years.
Wow.
I may break a bone, a tooth may fall out, but I don't get sick.
So you didn't get COVID, huh?
Of course not.
Oh my goodness.
Like I've been working on this I've been working on my health, because I was copper toxic as a kid and I had every malady under the sun. And I said, I'm going to figure this shit out. I'm going to really figure out how I'm going to get healthy. And if I die doing it, so be it. That was my quest. And so here I am at 59, best I've ever felt in my entire life.
Wow.
And I understood that I needed to detox the copper. I'll show you my hair test. I've been dumping copious amounts of copper for quite some time. So this copper, see that? That's copper.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's my cancer coming out. Can you see that?
Okay.
So I'm in a 4 high. I like to be in a 4 high because I like being kind of jacked up a little bit. But if I'm going to make it to 120, I actually have to come out of that 4 high, and I got to really slow that down. But while I'm dumping copper, I'm dumping out the cancer and I'm dumping out the brain diseases, because if we don't deal with the copper, because what does iron and copper have a love affair with?
Magnesium.
Oxygen.
Oh, of course.
They love oxygen. Some creatures breathe using copper. We breathe using iron. But all the oxidase enzymes in the body, they're going to love either iron or copper, and they'll use other metals, but copper and iron have a love affair with oxygen. So oxygen, when it gains an electron, then that oxygen becomes a superoxide anion. Then that superoxide anion will gain another electron, then it becomes hydrogen peroxide. Then that hydrogen peroxide has a few fates. That hydrogen peroxide, if you have infections, it's going to churn that through the myeloperoxidase enzyme. It's going to churn that into, it's going to churn it into not a hydroxyl radical, but it's going to turn it into, skipping my head right now, but
something fancy.
But oxygen becomes hydrogen peroxide. That hydrogen peroxide has fates. If you have to attack a bacteria, you're going to produce a hydroxyl radical. So you need that hydroxyl radical to kill the bacteria, the virus, the fungus. Oh, bleach was what myeloperoxidase will take that hydrogen peroxide and make bleach. So your body produces
like chlorine,
like chlorine. So your body produces that, and that's going to kill fungus. It's going to kill infections, bacteria. That's why there's one lady that's promoting bleach, and there's some truth to that. But it's the copper and iron. When we go to the hydroxyl radicals through Fenton chemistry, you need either the copper or the iron to churn the hydrogen peroxide into that hydroxyl radical. That hydroxyl radical is behind all your cancers, all your diseases, all your heart diseases. And so you need it to some degree, but you have to be able to contain the copper and iron so you're not producing a gazillion molecules of hydroxyl radicals. That's why copper and iron have to find their sweet spot. That's why controlling those two elements becomes paramount to mineral balancing.
Wow. Okay, and then let's talk about the pineal again. So you were talking about the enemies of the pineal. And so it isn't just about, oh, people say, well, you can take like krill oil and it'll help decalcify your pineal gland. But it's a lot bigger than that, isn't it?
Oh,
And
huge.
it's very individual because we all have our own level of toxicity that's dampening our pineal or altogether just putting it out. So yeah, speak some more about the pineal.
Okay, so the pineal gland is the sacred eye. And so the pineal gland makes your serotonin, the light element, melatonin, the dark element. Between the light element, serotonin, and the dark element, melatonin, is DMT. DMT is dimethyltryptamine. That's the spirit molecule. When you take magic mushrooms, ayahuasca, LSD, you produce a lot of DMT because that's the portal into the multi-dimensional universe where you see things that you don't normally see in everyday consciousness. But when you're under that psychedelic influence, you're under the DMT that your pineal gland naturally produces. So that DMT is our dream vision. So when we're dreaming, we're producing DMT. And when we're having out-of-body experiences, DMT, near-death experiences, DMT, psychedelic experiences, DMT. But those calcium crystals in your pineal gland have to vibrate the right frequency to release these molecules so you can sleep good and dream well, so you can have the light element to wake up on time, make the melatonin so you can go to bed on time. So that pineal gland controls all circadian rhythms of life, all of them.
Wow.
Hormonal regulations, sleep regulations, when we eat, when we sleep, when we do this, when we do that is governed via the pineal. That's why the pineal gland is the prize. You control the pineal gland, you control human consciousness. And so, so those calcium crystals have to vibrate the right frequency. As they calcify, they don't vibrate, and you don't get the photonic energy of the universe, of the cosmos, to open up to give you that third eye inner vision for an inner understanding so you can understand the matrix and the bullshit that we've been inundated with. And so this is where lithium becomes very important. That molecule lithium has a strong affinity to your pineal gland. So when you think of your periodic table, Hydrogen is the first element. It's the God particle. It's the most abundant element. Your DNA is held together through hydrogen bonding. So it's a fire element. So hydrogen, hydrogen bomb, the hydrogen sun. So it's got that strong fire energy. So then hydrogen as the God particle, God had a son that was helium, Helios. So Helios is the sun. And so gas, then the first metal on the periodic table, number 3, is lithium. So it's the building block to every neuron in our brain. So it's why we have a thinking man's brain. So the Big Bang gave us hydrogen, helium, lithium, the original trinity of the Big Bang. And that Big Bang gave man a thinking man's brain that influences the pineal. So that pineal gland can regulate the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and our entire nervous system. So lithium's like a stone. It's the builder. It's the brick and mortar of every neuron in your body. That's why when you take lithium, what do they give you lithium for? They give you lithium carbonate in medicine if you're depressed, because it will open up your pineal gland and get the neurons to rewire your brain. So when we take lithium orotate, we have the potential to rewire our brain. But we got to deal with the things that calcify the pineal gland, the fluoridation, the metals, all the metals. You can just look at aluminum, but you're going to see in a calcified pineal gland, it'll be aluminum, it'll be mercury, it'll be copper, it'll be iron, it'll be all the metals when they become in an oxidized version. It will calcify that pineal gland, and then those calcium crystals won't vibrate. When they don't vibrate, you don't get the download, you don't get the dream. Then you become susceptible to someone controlling your dreams and your vision.
How big is the pineal gland?
Small. Like I actually don't know the actual size, but it's small.
But smaller than like a pea, do you
It's
think?
about the size of a pea, and it sits outside the blood-brain barrier, so it becomes very susceptible to all the toxins because it's not protected by your blood-brain barrier.
Oh, I
So
did not
that's
know
why
that.
this fluoridation. So if you look at, who in their right mind would take the most caustic element on the table, the most reactive element, fluorine, which is a electron hungry hog. It will steal electrons from anything. That's why they put fluorine or the halogens, the fluorine, the chlorine, the bromide. Most 80% of every drug is halogenated because it will get the job done. It makes the chemistry work because it's so reactive, because it will steal an electron like no tomorrow. And so they put it in our God-given water. And so our water is dead. So
For our teeth?
yeah, good for your. So if someone says, "What do you have against fluoride?" I go, "I have nothing against fluoride if it's if it's calcium fluoride that's naturally occurring in nature. Sodium fluoride is made by the aluminum industry, and that's aluminum is another metal of Neptune, and Neptune is deception, drugs, and poison, and that's
Wow.
the Neptunian energy. So the light side of Neptune is beautiful because that's lithium, but the dark side of Neptune would be aluminum. And that aluminum will go right to your brain, and it will calcify depends on what part of the brain it gets lodged into.
So taking lithium orotate, now some people, you mentioned lithium, the medication, which is very bad for you and very bad for your kidneys and can really, really hurt you. But lithium orotate is a natural mineral that you can just buy as a supplement. But if your pineal gland's already calcified, it can't absorb it. It can't utilize it. Is that right?
I believe that to be true. So depending on what degree of calcification. So if you gave if I gave it to my Alzheimer's mother at the time, it wouldn't do anything. Okay, the pineal gland's too far gone. But if the pineal gland is still vibrating at a decent frequency, it has the chance to really start to heal. But then you got to stop all the other pollutants from coming in. So you still have to have a strategy stopping the garbage, all the metals and chemicals that can affect it, and then coming in with the right nutrients so you can start building it up. And so it's a good question, and I don't know how to exactly answer it. I'm giving you a roundabout way, but lithium orotate is only like 5 milligrams of lithium, where in medicine, they're giving you 150 grams of lithium carbonate. That's why it
Milligrams.
becomes so destructive to the kidneys. So they have to pull you off of it after about a year of being on lithium carbonate, that it'll shut down the kidneys.
Yeah, yeah, I know someone who actually had a pretty advanced kidney disease from lithium. So, okay, this is fascinating. So, besides, like, what are some of the things? Okay, I'll tell you this. I've heard that krill oil, really intense breath work. I've heard melatonin. I've heard, what else have I heard? Besides mineral balance and full on doing the whole program that, I'm doing, that many of us are doing. Besides that, what are some of the things we can do to help to revive or vitalize our pineal gland?
No, good question. And I would say start blasting out the sinuses. So you get a neti pot and you put your Himalayan salt in there. You put a couple drops of iodine in there, and it's going to burn like hell. But you start blasting out your sinuses. Every time you're taking a shower, you're blasting out your sinuses. And so that would be one thing. Then you want to tap on the occiput bone, because that's going to send the vibration to your pineal gland. So you want to start getting some vibratory sensation to start opening it up. And then I would recommend, if you're strong enough. Now, if you've been really detoxing and mineral balancing for a couple of years, then I would say then you're ready to experiment with some psychedelics, where you do some ayahuasca, or you do magic mushroom, because that stuff will blast open the pineal gland like no tomorrow. But it's not for everyone. Like I said, when I go to these ayahuasca ceremonies, most people drink the brew and they're puking the whole night. I'm drinking the brew and I'm getting off. I'm into another stratosphere. I'm getting down low. So I'm not sitting there just, I have thrown up a few times, but in 1 year we did an ayahuasca ceremony once a month, 12 times in 1 year.
Wow.
So I really blew open that pineal gland, but maybe one of those times I did get nauseous and I did get sick. Everyone I see there becomes so, all they're doing is purging. And so you have to get clean before you experiment with psychedelics. But that is one approach to really blast opening that pineal gland. So when you think of the magic mushroom, mycelium, you know how Sir Isaac Newton told us about the gravitational forces? If there's a gravitational force, what's the opposite of gravitational? Levitation. What levitates? Mycelium. Mycelium levitate to the sun, and the sun spits out the mycelium into the universe. That's why one of the spacecrafts caught a mold infection where they had to shut it down.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we can find, so mycelium had this levitational energy. And then when you think of mushrooms, some are culinary delights, some are poison and can kill you, some are medicinal mushrooms, reishi, chaga, cordyceps, and some are psychedelic. So the mycelium family, we're connected to it. It connects the entire forest through the mycelium. So we can rewire our brains using intelligently ayahuasca and magic mushroom, but don't do anything synthetic like LSD, because now you're playing with Franken medicine.
What about
Did I
DMT?
answer that question?
Yeah, what about DMT?
I haven't tried it, so I can't comment on it, but I've heard great things about it. It's on my hit list of things to do.
Okay. Well, so that makes me think about, like, the times that I've experimented with mushrooms, and have had really severe reactions, and really, like, long trips, like 10 hours, where everyone had come down after 3 or 4 hours. I was tripping for 10 hours, and I was like so overwhelmed by what I was feeling and seeing that. And it's not the first time. Like, there are other times that I've done these things, and even marijuana can do it to me. So I don't mess with any of that stuff. So my question is that because I'm so like, my pineal's so toxic that I can't have, I mean, because I definitely was having experiences, and I'm asking for a lot of people, because I know this isn't an unusual experience. Yeah, what do you think's going on with that?
Yeah, I just think you're too toxic, and so that liver is just too congested and it's too toxic. And so, when we drink these magic potions or whatever, and they open up, and you have that trippy experience where you see other dimensions, other portals, other universes, other entities, dark spirits, light spirits. Um, it's powerful stuff. So that's why I say just don't go to an ayahuasca ceremony unless you've been really detoxing severely for at least 3 years to get your body ready for that psychedelic trip, because it's death through astonishment. I mean, your whole world that you perceive will be completely different. In the Vatican, they have the largest pine cone. Did you know
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I've seen that.
That
And it's
pine
like
cone is,
gold, right?
and that's the thing, control the pineal, you control human consciousness.
Because the pineal looks like a pine cone, right?
Pine
Under a
cone,
microscope.
exactly. That's exactly what it
I
represents.
mean, it shows up a lot in hieroglyphics as well, Egyptian hieroglyphics and stuff. It's so interesting to me. When I was a kid, when I was born, I was quite sick. I was born like a month too soon. And I was, I had like, within a matter of days, I had like spinal meningitis and I had like pneumonia, and I was in a NICU for a long time. And when I got out and started to grow up, every time I got sick, I would have out of body experiences. And I would be able to float around my house. And these were not dreams, because there was several experiences where I was able to tell my mom what she was doing in another room. And so there was all of these things that were happening, and I was very afraid of all of it, terrified. And as I got older, it started to wane. But what it does is I know the difference between what a regular dream is and what a lucid dream is. Like, I still have them sometimes. And I'm always like, what is going on? Why can't I access that anymore? And if I was that toxic as a kid, because I know I was, but I was still having these experiences, there must have been some kind of struggle or battle within me that was going in back and forth in between these two dimensions or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, no, very interesting, because we're stuck in this program right now, and this program is telling us to throw away all the ethereal, psychedelic, other universes, other galaxies, other dimensions. So we're told to be stuck in this physical world. And if you start thinking or hallucinating, you're crazy, you're a lunatic, you're a nutbag. We're going to put you
Yeah.
in the funny farm. And so
The
we're
funny part.
programmed to not open up to the dynamics of this universe. So as we start to open up, we have religious, programming, we have societal programming, educational programming, telling us what God is, what God isn't, and we have all this stuff. When we go on our journey, it's not about, someone telling it, you experience it directly. So I would say, don't give up on your vision quest. Keep working on the detox. And then when you get a little bit stronger, a little bit in the right mindset, go on a little magic mushroom trip and be prepared to, use,
To throw
sound
up for 10
therapy and
hours.
vibrations to really open up to see what is it I need to learn about that trip. Because every time I do an ayahuasca session, it takes me a long time to process what the download was. And it's fascinating stuff.
Uh-huh. So what about someone who might say to you, I think that's probably just it's just hallucinations. Like, you've just activated a part of your brain. There's nothing spiritual about it. You're just actually having a hallucination.
The DMT naturally produced in your brain is why you dream. So that dream, is it real? It's as real as the day is real, but when we're dreaming, it's real. But when we're awake, it's not real. So we have to be able to define reality, and that we're given a simulacra of what reality is. So Hollywood gives you the fake magic, all the Harry Potters and every movie about magic, where we're not creating our own magic, our own vision. So the skeptic will say, oh, you're just hallucinating. I'm saying, no, I'm activating the pineal gland, activating the spirit molecule that transcends space and time, blocks all barriers. It dissolves every wall and barrier that we have, so we can experience this multi-dimensional universe. Good boy.
Okay, so um um now, okay, now we're gonna wrap it up here, but I'm gonna throw you off guard here, but it just crossed my mind to ask you this. Do you have any, the way you so eloquently and thoroughly describe the meaning of things and the esoteric meaning of things, can you explain the Adam and Eve and the snake and the tree of knowledge? Do you have anything to say about that?
Like Adam represents the atom, Eve, Eve is the even number, so that's why, when we look at numbers, one is masculine, two is going to be positive because two is even. Eve is more, it's a positive and a negative. So
Okay.
it's that positive and negative have to come together to create life. And so when we think of the tree, so this is where I come back to the elements. We have fire, water, air, earth. Those are the four elements. When those four elements come together, then we create the quintessence. Then we create the tree of life, the tree of knowledge, the bronchial tree, the aortic tree, how man is an inverted tree. And you notice they use the apple as the symbol. So why do they use an apple? Because the apple represents magic, because when you cut the apple in half, it's a pentagram. All magical practices are practiced on a pentagram. So the pentagon is black magic, but when we master the elements of connect the fire, the water, the air, the earth together, then we create the tree of life. In Chinese medicine, their fifth element is wood. Wood represents a tree. A tree can only be a tree if it has the fire of the sun, the air, the water, and the earth. Then we create the tree of life, the tree of knowledge. So it's understanding that the positive and negative, the atom, the proton and the electron come together to create that electromagnetic energy that creates life. And so that's why they use the symbolism of the tree and the serpent deceiving us, going for the apple. Then I say, what are the apples that changed the world? What would be the five apples that have changed the world?
I can only think of Isaac Newton. Um,
Isaac Newton's apple, telling us about gravity, forgetting to tell us about levitation, telling us about electricity, forgetting to tell you about magnetism. The Garden of Eden apple. Then we have the Beatles' Apple records. Okay, then we have Apple computer. Those are all apples that change the world. And when we, on Halloween, do we bob for carrots? No, we bob for apples because it represents magic.
Yeah, I think carrots are easier to bob for, probably.
Yeah, but the apple is a pentagram, and that's the thing. When you place that, and you'll see that beautiful pentagram, and all magical practices happen on the pentagram.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's the fifth element. That's when those four elements come together, you create the fifth element, the blue note. And that is a note you can't really describe because it transcends the four to create that magical part, that, that fifth note, that magical chord. And so when we strike that magical chord, we're amalgamating those elements. That's why if you're born in an earth sign or a water sign, you want to balance out all the energy. So that's why our goal in mineral balancing and getting healthy and exalting our health practices, we have to understand the balance between the yin and the yang, the positive and the negative, to create invincible health. When we have invincible health, we'll get through anything.
Right. Yeah. Well, that certainly has been the big lesson for over the last 2 years for a lot of people. It's like people never cared as much about boosting immunity as they did now, right?
Yep.
Wow, there is so much, you have so much knowledge in your brain that just gets like thrown at me. My notes don't even make sense at the end of the day. I'm just like,
I give you my ADHD version of everything. So I know
so good.
It's like, I need to, when I go over the 7-year cycles, it takes me 1 hour to just do a moon cycle.
Wow.
Explaining the organs, the remedies, the mindset, the good part of it, the bad part of it. So I just gave you a very rudimentary of the 7 phases of cycles of life.
Right.
But it takes time. And so in this, when I'm doing a podcast, I'm all over the place.
Right.
So I apologize for that.
No, it's great. It's great. are you going to teach a class? I know you do some webinars and things like that, but um, because I know there are homeopathic classes and things to take, but what you do, the combination of the, esoteric aspect of astrology and everything, plus the homeopathic remedies, is that something, I know I've asked you this before, but have you thought of creating a curriculum and teaching it?
Yes, I have. I'm actually working on it. So right now I have to be able to get from here. I got to get into some kind of PowerPoint or some format where I can go over each planet and the cycles and what they represent. So we look at, if you're born on a Tuesday, if I have a child born on a Tuesday, I got to understand that I got to build their immunity with zinc, because zinc is, the higher octave of iron. So zinc is always fighting for your immune system. You need zinc to activate every white blood cell. And so when you have those white blood cells fighting, then you have, macrophages that can gobble this up. Neutrophils will kill bacteria, kill mold. But you have to be able to activate it. So zinc is the warrior. It's the spiritual warrior. Iron is the physical warrior of Mars. And then potassium is, another element of Mars. So I want to be able to go over all the planets, because, there's going to be actually 49 cycles. So you could be a Mars, Venus, a Mars, Saturn, a Mars, Jupiter, depending on, the hour that you were born, depending on your sun sign, your moon sign. So we want to look at all the planets that are most predominant in you. And then we see what cycle you're in. So knowing the cycle I'm in, I've already experienced a broken bone and a tooth. Hopefully I'm done with that.
Yeah.
And so how do we strengthen with the herbs and the homeopathics, the cycle that we're in? How do we energetically understand when we have the liver cycle that you're in? How do you energetically focus on that Jupiterian energy of growth and expansion? How are you growing and expanding consciously?
Especially if you are a Thursday baby.
Especially if you're so you got a strong liver. So you're focusing on hitting the coffee enemas, hitting the liver herbs, focusing on cleaning out the liver, not putting shit in that destroys the liver, because the liver it's written in the word, Live. It's where we live.
Right.
Live, spelled backwards, is evil spirits, chemicals, metals, and all that stuff.
You always blow my mind. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, I actually stopped drinking the way that I was drinking before, which was just like on the reg, like, a bottle of wine with dinner with my husband, or go out, have a couple cocktails. Like it was just a normal for us, or at least 4 days a week, at least. And I was just like, just decided, you know what? I'm done with this. And so we did dry January, and it was like super easy. And so now it's like, yeah, I'll have a drink or two on the weekend, and then I just not drinking. And it really, I feel like I finally am in a groove here. So yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's why we got to understand that liver and how to live. We have to get those evil spirits, and alcohol is the worst evil spirit that we're consciously drinking. No one's holding a gun to our head saying, you got to drink this.
Yeah.
We are spending our hard-earned currency buying their poisons.
Right. It's not even mandated. We're just taking it.
Right. I mean, they didn't close down the liquor stores, did they?
They sure didn't. And thank goodness at the time.
No, what do you think cannabis, what planet does cannabis represent?
I don't know.
It's the moon. That's why never smoke during the day. Okay.
Well, the moon isn't a planet.
It's not a planet, correct.
Okay. Otherwise it wouldn't.
I'm just referring to the seven.
Right, the seven.
So the moon, it represents cannabis. And so cannabis makes us, so the moon controls sexual energy, controls the stomach, controls the nocturnal, the pineal. So when we smoke cannabis, it makes us a little bit sleepy, makes us a little bit hungry, makes us a little bit horny. All moon energy.
Wow, interesting.
And technically we should only smoke cannabis 3 days out of the month, before the full moon, on the full moon, and a day after the full moon. That should be your cannabis experience. Then after that, it's too much.
Interesting.
And cannabis is actually from the Pleiadians.
No, really? You mean it was sent to us from the Pleiadians?
Yeah,
Oh
because
my goodness, you're holding
they
out on
knew
me.
that we would be in this age that we would have a calcified pineal gland. So cannabis has an effect on our pineal gland as well.
Interesting.
And so
Another thing I can't
so
do.
people that have sleep, stuff, I mean, we think of some moon herbs or moon homeopathics.
Right. Huh. Okay. All right. As usual, I'm like, I need to have you back on because I have more questions about that stuff. But you were so great. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to see what's unfolding next so I can be like, he was right again.
Yeah. And I think that, from 222 to 322, that's setting the table for this age that we're in. So I think on 322, which happens to fall on a Tuesday, which is Skull and Bones, I think there may be some kind of thing that may happen. So again, don't live in fear.
Right.
Be prepared, not scared. Understand that we have to go through it. We can't avoid it. We're going to go through it. You create health, you'll get through anything.
Got it. So good. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.